Hey folks, the next tool I want to do for you is called Fishbone, the Fishbone Diagram, also called the Ishikawa or the Cause and Effect Diagram. Very simple, easy tool to use. First and foremost, you can see that we have a lot of white space here, and all the Fishbone Diagram is really is a brainstorming tool. And the reason we use it is because, frankly, to brainstorm on a big white sheet of paper or a whiteboard or a chalkboard, it doesn't lend itself to get started very easily. So what a fishbone diagram does is just give a little structure to brainstorming. So the first thing you do is you write in the head of your fish, what your problem is. So I'm going to say, why is my latte cold? So I've gone to the coffee shop and I've ordered a nice, large, warm, hot latte, and it has come out cold. The next thing you do is you draw the bones of your fish, thus its name, the fishbone. There's no rule on how many bones you need. In this case, I've got 6, and then you label your bones, and you can go out there and search on the internet. Some people use the 4 P's, plant, policies, people, process. There's also the 6 M's, men and women, mother nature, materials, etc. I personally just label the bones intuitively. So I believe that there's probably a process at this coffee shop. There's got to be equipment at this coffee shop. I'm going to break people up into employees and customers because I really feel like there's 2 different groups there. And certainly we have materials at this coffee shop. And that may be all I can think of. Several mistakes are made by people doing fishbone diagrams. One is that they feel like everything has to be labeled perfectly before they start. Just start brainstorming. If something comes up later and it doesn't fit, that's probably your new bone. The second mistake made with fishbones is it is a brainstorming activity, which means you have to allow for the free flow of ideas with no wrong answer. You can't shoot down people's ideas in a fishbone exercise. So if someone says something crazy as to why the latte might be cold, for example, Eskimos came into town and they put their cold hands on the latte. As crazy as that sounds, you write it down. We'll have a way to deal with ideas that aren't very plausible later, but what we don't want to do is shoot down the brainstorming activity. And with that, people start brainstorming, and so they might say, a piece of equipment is broken. They might say that an employee lacks training. These are the kind of things that I get all the time when I do this exercise. They'll say that the customer forgot. And here's really the third problem with fishbone diagram, and what sets my training apart from others is that all of these right here, while there might be neat ideas, they're not measurable. The only way, for example, to measure lack of training of an employee is to go up to him and ask him, do you have a lack of training? And I can tell you, most employees don't like to go to classes, and he'll say, no, I don't have a lack of training. So the most common mistake on fishbone is this one right here, that people write opinion data. You cannot fix opinion data. So the things that you brainstorm up there have to be specific and measurable. Specific and measurable. So what you write is that the employee doesn't know how to froth milk. That, my friends, is measurable. I don't need to ask him if he knows how to froth milk. I can go set up a test and say, here, come over here and froth some milk and make a latte. And I can measure what he's doing against the procedure, and I can prove or disprove your hypothesis, because that's really what's going on here. This should be your Y, and what you're brainstorming are potential X's, which, as I say to all of my students, all of life comes down to a hypothesis test. Y is a function of X. Lattes being hot or cold are a function of the things that you brainstorm. So you don't say that equipment's broken. You say that a thermometer is not calibrated. That's more measurable. Okay. You don't say that the customer forgot. You say that they went outside and they didn't hear their name called. Name called, okay? Very measurable criteria. Now the last one, and I did it on purpose right here, thermometer not calibrated is getting very close. So the fourth mistake that people make is they don't finish the sentence. I'll write that over here. Finish the sentence. I still don't quite understand how a thermometer not being calibrated causes a latte to be cold. So a good fishbone diagram often has the word because. Because the thermometer is not calibrated, the milk is too cold when placed into the cup. And now you've got something very measurable and very specific that you can go out and see if it's occurring. So again, fishbone diagram should be brainstorming. You don't shoot down wild ideas. You cannot put opinion data up there. You have to be specific and measurable and finish the sentence. All right, and with that, I hope you enjoyed a brief intro into the fishbone diagram.